You're listening to the Natalie Parker Studio podcast, episode number 3. In today's episode, we're going to discuss why imposter syndrome is actually a good thing. I know for many women artists, myself included, imposter syndrome is a biggie. But often we are led to believe that feeling like an imposter is a bad thing. Like somehow we should just get over it and push on. But what if feeling like an imposter was actually a good thing? Let's explore this in today's episode. Welcome to the Natalie Parker Studio podcast, the podcast for women artists who are ready to pursue their creative dreams so that they can thrive both in life and in business. I'm your host, Natalie Parker, artist and mentor to women creatives around the globe. In this podcast, I'll share with you the strategies, principles, and mindset that you need to build a purposeful and fulfilling creative business. If you're ready to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped to build the art business of your dreams, then you're absolutely in the right place. Let's dive into today's episode. Well, hey there, artist, and welcome to today's episode. In imposter syndrome, it's the big elephant in the room, right? It tends to raise its ugly head whenever we try to move forward in our life and try something new. It can prevent us from showing up to our studio. It can stop us from sharing our work. It stops us from asking from the sale. And even worse, it can totally derail our art career. But it doesn't have to be this way. Now, I am no stranger to imposter syndrome. In fact, I get it all the time. Just when I think I am fully confident, pressing on, building my business, serving my community, it comes back up. So what does it feel like when we are experiencing this imposter syndrome? To be an imposter, we feel like we are playing a role. Like at any point, someone is going to come along, figure out that we shouldn't be there, go, that person's been an imposter. No, they're not an artist. No, they're not a teacher. No, they shouldn't be there. And then we are going to be found out and be completely embarrassed and go, you know what, you're right, I shouldn't be here. Now, I remember when I first started training to be a teacher. So in my teaching degree, we had to go to other schools to practice being a teacher. They called them practicums. During that time, we were assigned certain classes and we were given the role of going in and teaching these classes and I guess playing the role of teacher. Now, imposter syndrome came up so much when I was doing that because I felt like I was not their real teacher. And in fact, they did have their own teacher. I was there covering. And I thought that at any time these teenagers were going to raise their heads and go like, you're not my teacher. I'm not listening to you. But you know what? They actually never did. Because they saw me as the authority in the classroom because I had been given that position. I had been put in that role as the teacher. I was introduced as their teacher. And then they just got on with the show. Now, for me, it was an incredibly challenging experience to go through. It required a lot of growth. I was still learning how to teach. There was a lot of things that I did wrong, a lot of things that I did right. But I knew that I had to go through that practice. I had to go through that process. I had to pretend, put on the role, the persona of being an artist or being a teacher. In this case, so that I could qualify to then go on and have my own classroom. So when we feel like an imposter, it's simply because we are trying something new, all right? We're stepping outside of our comfort zone. Yet in order to grow, we need to go through that process and be okay with feeling uncomfortable, all right? Or also known as an imposter for, a short period of time. You see, in order to not feel like an imposter in a certain area or a certain task, so whether that be having your first solo show, whether that be creating your first artwork, whether that be writing artist on your bio, in order to not feel like an imposter, you need to do it. You need to step out. You need to practice and repeat that skill. Because the more you practice, the more you repeat something, the more competent you become. And when you become competent, you then feel more confident, and in turn, you feel less like an imposter. So, if you feel like an imposter, and you will continue to feel like an imposter, know that this is a good thing because it means that you are stepping out. It means that you are growing. It means you're leveling up, trying new things, and becoming the best version of yourself. You're trying something new, and because of that, that deserves to be celebrated. So if feeling like an imposter is completely normal, if it's a good thing, if it's something to be celebrated, the challenge now becomes, what do we do when we're feeling like an imposter? We have those uncomfortable nerves, those feelings, and it's holding us back. How do we move forward anyway? Learn to work with imposter syndrome and get through that uncomfortable feeling. So here's 4 ways that I have personally learned to work with imposter syndrome. Number 1, the first way is to focus on your why. Now, when we are feeling like an imposter, it is because we are looking at ourselves and what we are feeling, rather than looking on the people we are serving and the good that we are giving back. So with your artwork, if you are worried about sharing your artwork, you're worried about what someone is going to say. But what would happen if instead of that you shared your work and it impacted someone? What if it brought joy to someone's life, beauty to someone's life? What if it made them just have a better day? So for me, every time that I have stepped out and tried something new, I have had to focus on why I am doing that. As an example, when I chose to set up the Confident Brush painting community, I got very nervous. I was like, who am I to step out? Who am I to open a painting community to teach these artists? Do I have enough experience? What if they don't like what I'm teaching? Yet, I had so many artists coming to me asking for help, asking to learn techniques, asking to find their style, and I knew that I had the ability to help them. So when I looked at the results, when I looked at who they were, what it was focusing on, the results that they were getting, the why, the reason why I was building the community, it helped me move through that imposter syndrome. The second thing to do to learn to work with imposter syndrome is to plan and prepare. Okay, so when I first started learning to teach, oh my goodness, did I plan, like everything, down to the structure of the class, minute by minute, what I was doing, what I was going to say, the resources were all prepared and planned. I even rehearsed what I was going to say to the class. And because of that, it gave me a little bit more confidence because I knew I was prepared, I knew what to expect, and I knew that I could be in control of that situation. It is the same thing when I've gone to do art shows and exhibits. My first art shows, I freaked out. I was like, do I have enough work? Do I have the titles? How do I hang the work? So I planned, I prepared, I practiced hanging my work up at home. I wrote down to-do lists of everything that I needed to take. I took extra hooks. I took extra labels. I looked at how other artists hung their work in shows and galleries, and I got that experience and that preparation before I went and did that. Now, because I'm fully competent, I've done 25 art shows and I taught secondary school for 10 years out of thousands of classes, I don't need to plan and prepare as much because I'm competent in that skill. I could literally go into a classroom and teach a lesson without any preparation. I know now how to put on a show. I've put on my own solo shows. I've put on shows in my own home. I know how to hang an artwork multiple different ways because I have been through that experience. Like I said, that built my competence and built my confidence. But before I got that competence, that planning and that preparation really helped me move through with that imposter syndrome. The third one is to confide in someone you trust. Now, often when we feel like an imposter, the thoughts are really impractical. Okay, and what I mean by that is we over dramatize things. Like for me, sometimes I'm like, who am I to teach, so and so whatever, this painting technique as an example. Yet, I'm like, I've been teaching for 10 years. Yeah, I kind of know how to teach that. But we forget. Now, when you have someone around you who's there to support you, who's there to encourage you, who's there to remind you of how great you are, it's really important. So I encourage you to find a community to support you. So inside the Confident Brush, this is one of the best things that I have for my artist community that they love, because often they get to practice. I call it like they got their training wheels on. So if you've never shared your work before, if you've never have an Instagram, you've never had a show, they can start by sharing their work inside our private, safe community. That has given them confidence, all right? Then they've gone on to set up their own Instagrams. Many have gone on to start selling their work. They've gone on to have their own shows and those kinds of things. Now, because they had that encouragement, because they had someone they could trust who was going to support them, it helped them move through that imposter syndrome. Number 4 is to remind yourself of what you have achieved in the past. Sometimes we downplay our achievements, we forget the successes we've had, when in fact those are great reminders of the abilities and the confidence we have. There's this huge paradox that happens. Sometimes the more we know, the less confident we feel, because sometimes when we know so much, we know everything that could go right, we know everything that could go wrong, and we start to overthink things. Now, I remember when my husband and I first launched our boxing gym. So we set up this boxing gym in Wellington in New Zealand. We ran it for about 3 or 4 years. Now, we had never leased a venue before. We had never run a big boxing gym. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. Yet we were so full of faith. We didn't know a lot, but we managed to go through and figure it out. Now, as we look to set up another gym and go into those kinds of adventures, because we know so much, we're kind of a little bit more timid in our decisions because we're aware. But we have to remind ourselves we have that ability to go and do something great. Look at what we've done at the past. Look at the amazing gym that we did. Look at how we moved from New Zealand to Australia. Look at how I've built, my 6-figure art business. Who ever thought I could ever have done that in the art field, all right? Look at how you left your job. Look at the fact that you had 25 art shows, Nat. Look at your sales that are coming through consistently every week. And I have to remind myself of the things that I've done and not downplay my talents, because that's like, you know what? I can do hard things. This is just another hard thing that I'm doing right now. Hence why imposter syndrome's coming up. I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I'm going to remind myself of everything that I've achieved, and that's going to help me move forward. So, if you are feeling like an imposter, this is a great thing. But the challenge simply for you to now is to learn how to work with it. So focus on your why. Do your planning and preparation. Confide in someone you trust. Get some encouragement. And remind yourself of the amazing things you've achieved in the past. Next time that you feel like an imposter, rather than get down on yourself and feel guilty, I want you to celebrate it. This is an action that I want you to do. Acknowledge you are feeling this way because you're being bold, all right? You're being a woman, you're stepping out, you're doing something courageous. You're growing And on the other side of that growth, there is competence. And where there's competence, there builds your confidence. Plus, when you go and do hard things, you inspire those people around you that it's 100% possible to grow and to do those amazing things. So if you've loved today's episode, I encourage you to take a screenshot of this, share it with me on Instagram at Natalie Parker Studio, and let me know how you're going to work with imposter syndrome and celebrate imposter syndrome when it comes up in your life, because it means that you are doing amazing things and stepping outside of your comfort zone. Coming up next week on the show, we're talking about how to sell more art. So I'm going to be giving you 7 ways to sell more art. So if your art sales are low, or you simply want to sell more work, and who doesn't, then you're definitely going to want to tune in. Until then, continue to pursue your creative dreams, and I will talk to you soon. Do you dream of having your own art business? Is 2022 going to be the year that you step out, go after your desires, and start to build the art biz you've been dreaming about for years? If you are, but you also have no idea how or where to start, then you're going to love this. On Jan the 20th, I'm kicking off a free training series for artists called the Art Biz Startup Series. In this 3-part training, you'll get clear about what you want for your business, you'll learn multiple ways to make money, and you'll learn my simple 3-step sales system that you can use over and over again to finally get those art sales coming in. So if you're ready to finally do what you love, to be fulfilled in your days, and to have the extra income for you and your family, then you're going to want to register for this free training today. Click the link to register in the show notes below. I can't wait to help you turn your art biz dream into a reality this year.